you something else about Selena Meyer, our commander-in-thief.
Check out the tits in the third row. I could dribble those things like basketballs.
She has destroyed the economy, made a mess of the Middle East, she ruined Thanksgiving, and that's all in just 10 months in office.
Kent says Jonah's up another 5 points.
Wait, what?
We're gonna win in Nashua. And we're gonna win in Peterborough, and Keene, and Brattleboro, yeah! My name is Jonah Ryan, and I...
Hello, John H. Ryan.
John, I don't think that was planned, John H. Ryan. Reed is just good at noticing. There was one in season 1. I don't know if anybody's watched the whole show, but in season 1, in the last episode, there's a sign. It's like the Ohio Center for Democracy or something like that. And he was like, OCD. Nobody fucking noticed that this says OCD. And so I think the moment where Reed comes in and says, nobody noticed the sign says John H. Ryan, nobody had noticed it in the entire production, and so it became a running joke.
Okay, so you guys, backtrack a little bit. How many of you watch Veep? This dude right here has literally had the best storyline of the season because, and I mean, Jonah, like, wait, what episode are we at? Because I don't want to ruin it for...
I think we just aired episode 8.
So he's already...
So I have already been elected.
Yes. You've been elected. Okay, because I don't want to... I've done this before, and I don't want to go that road.
Okay. It's your fault for showing up. If you're not caught.
Now you know.
Showed up
He's
here.
been
That
elected.
was dumb.
But really, as we were saying backstage, you were... Julia is the face of the show. She's the producer on the show. She has won, I think, every award for the show. And yet, this is what they mean when they talk about the generosity of actors. You have the storyline that everyone is talking about. So catch us up with Jonah Ryan, a.k.a. Hagrid's ballsack.
So let's see. I have a very powerful Uncle Jeff who has propped me up as a puppet placeholder for this congressional seat until
Cousin Ezra comes back.
Until Cousin Ezra comes back. But in my own head, I have locked onto it, as he says, like herpes or like a MRSA infection. That once I'm in there, you just can't get me out. So that's where he's at. And I think that like him being in Congress is something that that's his view of himself. That's his self-image of he is a congressman. He is beloved and he's handsome and people find him charming and he's sort of been secretly powerful this whole time. This seems to make sense for him.
How did you guys develop Jonah? Because he's got such a specific look and such specific mannerisms where he really is the only character on the show that could believably shoot himself in the foot, like for real shoot himself in the foot.
I think, part of it is just that I'm generally ungainly, and just me personally. And then we just, as I was saying, like we've done like a lot of little things to separate him physically from what I look like. We flat iron my hair every morning and we part it awkwardly, and my clothes don't fit particularly well. But I think the one thing that everybody has been sort of open to from the beginning is we've tried to ground the show in reality, and we've tried to have it rooted in some sort of emotional reality. And this is all fucking super whatever, but like actory, meow meow. But
that's the reason the show works, is because it really does have that.
I think that we really have tried to get some sort of sympathy going for Jonah, that even in those moments where he acts horribly, there's something in there that makes you feel bad for him. It doesn't necessarily mean that you like him, but at least you might feel bad. You'd feel a moment of hurt for him.
What's been your absolute penultimate favorite Jonah moment this season? Was it the cease and desist letters from Tom Petty?
There was a moment with those where I think it ended up being too much, but when he's victorious at that first speech that he gives, when it starts out poorly and ends up going great, I think it ended up being too much, but he uses my name is Jonah Ryan and I won't back down at the end of that speech. But I think somehow we managed to get 4 applicable song titles by bands that had sent us cease and desist letters. So Metallica had sent us a cease and desist letter, and I said that Selena Meyer was not the master of puppets, and that And then there was another one, and then it was I Won't Back Down. And I think it was just like it sounded written and it sounded like a joke. But I honestly, that scene with the marching band was one of my favorite ones to film because it was Jonah succeeding, and he never does that. And it was a crowd of people that loved him, and that never happens. And then at the end of it, a marching band plays. So you can just be some asshole, and which I absolutely was, or am generally. And I could have failed and just nosedived that scene into the ground, and a marching band would start playing at the end, so it seems great. Like, no matter what, if you have a marching band behind you, a scene goes well.
Did you know at the very beginning of the season that this is the arc that you'd have?
Yeah, Dave, our new showrunner, Dave Mandel, had mentioned it, and I was very excited about it. He had met Armando when they were kind of passing the torch. They were passing the torch, and they talked about a lot of the ideas that they had, and it was something that even Armando had mentioned. The seed of the idea in like the second season, he was like, "Oh, I think it might be funny if sometime in the future this happened." And I think he mentioned that to Dave. It came up in that conversation, and so early on, I think the idea was there, but it was Dave and the new writers that made it go in this direction, that made it come from the widow Sherman, or from Congressman Sherman dying, and all the stuff with the NRA. That was all the new guard.
Are you surprised at how, I mean, you guys shoot so far ahead, and yet your show is so incredibly topical, given what's in the news today? Does that surprise you, or
I mean, it
is
doesn't.
This kind of the world of politics?
I think nobody should be surprised that some politicians are dumb as fuck. I think that's maybe something we shouldn't be surprised about, and we can. I just feel like, the good money's on a politician doing something dumb in the future. So I think one thing that, and I think we can also count on most Americans' dislike of politicians, and so everybody's always going to be down for making fun of them. So, but one thing that happens is that, and this has happened a bunch of times before, that the writers will go into a room and think of the dumbest thing a politician can do. And they'll come out and be like, "All right, we found it." And we'll shoot that, and then 6 weeks later, a politician will do it. And then the show airs 6 months later, and it looks like we've ripped it from the headlines, but it isn't. Like, we just thought of some dumb shit, and then pardon me, and then they just like imitate it. They just imitate it because they're not able to be smart.
How do you guys reel off the amazing one-liners without breaking?
We don't. We're very unprofessional, and we break all the time. And luckily, we have good editors.
It literally looks like it's just like boom. I mean, the stuff is like rolling out, and you're like, whoa, 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 whoa! This is incredible.
They just cut away from us breaking. Tony Hale is the worst at it. Tony Hale is, and I think by his own admission, is absolutely the worst at it. No, I don't know. I think it just, like, when it comes to the insults, we have formed like a callous to being insulted 5 years in, and I think that there is also some clinical attachment where you just, like, when they say that I have the face of a date rapist. They're talking about my face. My face doesn't look any different than that when I go home. So I have to be at least willing to be like, oh, well, they're talking about Jonah Ryan's face. Certainly, Timothy Simons' face does not look like this police sketch of a date rapist. So you just have to build up a little bit of a callus to it. I've told the story a couple times, but at one point there was a line that made it. It was an alt that made it into the episode where they said, all right, now say that he looks like a bunch of melted Play-Doh stuck to a flagpole. And Sam Richardson was in the backseat of a car and just went, oh my God, like that one really hurt. Because they come in and they look at you, and then they go away and and then they come back with an insult that you know they have tailored specifically to your body type. And that's hard. That's hard sometimes.
But I think it's such a testament to your acting that sitting across from you, you're literally nothing like Jonah. I mean, are people surprised when they meet you and they're like, oh my God, you're like really nice and normal?
I don't know. I think people generally are surprised. But I don't know. I mean, like, I do feel like if I was really that bad, they wouldn't have given me this job. If I was really that awful to be around, they would have written me out. I mean, I hope. maybe contractually they have to keep me around. That I don't know. Maybe that's the only thing that saved me.
Oh, maybe Julia. Julia probably would have pulled the plug. She would
Yeah.
have been like,
Okay.
he really is. You know, what is it? What is your favorite Jonah-ism?
Like thing that he said or an insult that's been thrown
Both.
at? Both. It's coming to mind right now. He says, you just put information out there and you wait for something to back it up. That's journalism 101. That was one thing that he said. And then I like that in his victory speech, he says that he has believed in himself so hard that he eventually became a congressman, like that was his dream. I think my favorite insult that has been thrown his way is the cloud botherer, only because it doesn't involve, the swearing is so harsh, mostly, and it's very clever swearing, but I just loved the cloud botherer. He's just up there, and the clouds are like, ugh.
My favorite one is One Erection.
One Erection is pretty good. And then there are some more ungainly, wordy ones that were Teenage Mutant Ninja asshole. It isn't really even a good insult. And he tries, he's hearing this list of terrible insults being thrown his way. And he thinks that he can, move the tide back in his favor by saying that his college friends, of which he had none, his college friends called him Tall McCartney. I was gonna call him Spewbacca, but now Tall McCartney, that's better.
Oh my God, what is it like working with Julia after all these seasons? I mean, you guys are in season 5 now.
Season 5, yes, she. I find it very. I never answer that question jokingly because
She really is a wonderful
she's
human
really
being.
a wonderful person and she's a wonderful castmate and she works unbelievably hard and as we just kind of know, as history has now told us, she is singularly talented. There are very few people in the history of comedy that are as good at it as she is. But on top of that, she's great as a castmate. She's great, works tirelessly to make sure that an ensemble stays together. And she works really fucking hard. So she's pretty much the best castmate that you could have.
And she also, and you have that skill. Actually, everyone on the show has the skill of making us like and care about people who are despicable. Who are shallow and despicable and literally would kill their own grandmother, kill their own second-grade teacher to get elected.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that there is something that maybe, and this will probably go over into the Artie Wink meow meow, but I think that there are, people do recognize that own selfishness in themselves, I think. They see, they have any amount of competitiveness or any amount of selfishness, they're at least willing to be I'm somewhat like that person. But I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Maybe
That's just government, dear God. What kind of feedback have you gotten from our elected officials?
that this is 100% across the board. This is true. Every politician thinks that this show is making fun of everyone else but them. That is 100% true. Mostly they say that it's very accurate, which is awful.
That's horrific.
Yeah, no, it's horrific. And they all really like it. I think that they're narcissistic, so they like seeing themselves represented poorly or complimentary. So they really like it. But yeah, no, we've had a lot of occasion to hang out with politicians because of the show. Like we were able to, as a cast, we were able to go to the correspondence dinner and stuff like that. And yeah, across the board, they really like it. I don't know why.
Can you imagine?
No. If somebody made a show that was like, we're just going to make fun of Tim Simons for an hour, I don't know if I would be like, yeah, all right, that's really
Awesome.
funny.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
He's not a good father. Like, come on. I'm a very good father.
Where do you want to see? Well, you already know how the show ends, so can you tease that a little bit? The season, not the show. Sorry.
Oh yeah,
I misspoke.
No, I become president. The congressional thing is just like a placeholder.
It's a stopgap?
Yeah, I become president.
Great. Who's your vice president?
Um,
Selena? Is she demoted?
It ends up being Matt Walsh. Matt Walsh ends up being vice president, and then we introduce a new character. Look, we needed to get in a new audience, so the new vice president is an animated bear. He's called Farty the animated bear, and he's sort of the punchline to every joke. We're like, there's a war starting Indochina War, and then you pan to Farty, and he goes. It's not a very good joke, guys. Thanks for even. Thank you.
I think it would work. But seriously, like what?
Oh, how does it end?
Yeah. I mean, like, what can you kind of tease about the final episode of season 5? Episode 10, tell us everything.
Hot guys. That is actually 100% true, and I will say that hot guys. That's
Selena's
one thing
sexuality rears its head again. Is it for Selena? She has a voracious sexual appetite. That one.
She really does.
She does.
It's
It's like nice to see.
Yeah, right, and unapologetically, it's great. No, hot guys, but not for Selena.
Okay, now this is getting interesting.
Yeah, it's getting interesting.
For Amy?
Well, you'll see.
Oh. Did you base Joan on anyone?
No, because I never really met anybody that would have ever admitted to them being like him. Kind of like a bunch of smashes. He's a little bit of a smash together of a few different behaviors of people that I met in DC when we were starting filming, and then just trying to like play up the worst parts of myself.
Oh, I don't believe it.
They're in there. You just have to be like, all right, let's do this one.
What does your wife make of your hair on the show?
Of my hair? I think I get back to normal by the time I get home. So I generally do kind of wash it off before. Like I wash off his stink before I get home.
So, how has the dynamic of the cast changed from season 1 to season 5, especially now that you guys have a new showrunner?
Well, it's strange. Like, as the show has gotten bigger, as she's become president, when she's vice president, she has a lot of time, and mostly the show was 5 people in a room, and Sue's at the desk, and I come in and out, and then we added Gary Cole and Kevin Dunn to the second season, and they are incredible, and they're an unbelievable addition to the show. But it used to be sort of like a lot more long, meandering 12-page scenes, and just when you're president, realistically, you do not have as much time to talk about anything. So scenes are much quicker, scenes involve fewer people. And so the cast dynamic hasn't changed outside of, in so much as that we still love and support one another and try to be good castmates, but I don't really get to see Kevin or Gary very much. We're just not in a lot of scenes anymore. I only think I was in one scene with Walshy this entire year. So that's a bummer. Like, that's the only thing, as the show has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger, that's the only bummer about how it has expanded, is that we just don't get to play those scenes that we loved, like the first and second season, doing these long
Everyone's
takes
just together.
everybody's in there bouncing 9 different conversations around. I think we missed those a little bit. Yeah.
How do you know when a joke is hitting on the show?
When he's hitting?
When a joke just hits?
I don't.
Is there someone that you look to or look at for their response?
There is a thing, like if I do have, like if I'm like on set and if there is an eye line to Video Village, like through a door, I will always kind of peek over and see, but they're hidden. They're usually a few rooms away. So sometimes you just don't know if it's going well, and so I will go in and check in. But then there are the times where, when we were filming the Goober Peas scene, I think in season 3, where I make Matt Walsh kneel down and sing Goober Peas. I remember that Ian Martin, who's one of our old writers, and he's sort of like this old salt, like Eastender Brit, who grew up there before it was the East End now, like when it was the East End of yore, and he's 70 years old, and I think we were all worried we were going to kill him. He was laughing so hard. Like, he could not keep it together watching Matt sing Goober Peas. So there are moments where you do get immediate feedback. Yeah, and that's really nice. But most of the time, you just kind of have to guess that it's working.
And before we go to the audience, I wanted to get your take on where you want Jonah, John H. Ryan, to go in season 6.
Honestly, I really want him. He always he's like a cockroach. He just keeps coming back. He keeps failing upward, and I just want that to happen, because I do think that, like, with people like Ted Cruz, like there is a fair amount of, you can be hateable. You can literally have nobody in the entire world particularly like you, but you can still fail upward into power. So I would like for that to keep going.
No, you're so right. Like there's like, I'm trying to think of one redeeming thing to say about him.
About Ted Cruz or about Jonah?
We'll leave it at Jonah.
Okay.
And you're right. He's failed upward magnificently.
Yeah. The only thing that you can really say that he's done well is he managed to spin his molestation into a positive. Like he did that. Like he worked through it. That's the only thing he's ever done well.
Brattleboro. Even I knew. Like when I heard that, I was like, dude, everyone knows it's Vermont. Like what?
Just two dirty piles of snow connected by a covered bridge.
Oh my God, you guys, I could do this for hours, but let's turn it over to the audience.
Hey man, I'm glad to see you're a proud member of the Beard Gang.
Oh yeah, man. I leaned in and I got some beard oil too. Like I'm doing it.
You know how it goes.
Yeah.
So for you, what was your light bulb moment where you knew you could succeed in the acting business?
I honestly, I don't know. I mean, I think maybe it just came in college when I didn't start until I was in college, and I started like doing plays, I guess, and like I kept getting cast in them. But that only really made me think like, I don't know, that maybe I was good enough to try to keep doing it. I feel like if I was trying it at that level and just like wasn't getting anywhere, that maybe that would be telling, but I don't know if it even still particularly exists now. But I don't know, that's a good question. I don't know that I have one. Yeah, so I'm a failure.
Hey, thanks for being here. I love Veep so much, and my mom doesn't watch TV, and I got her watching it, and literally every time someone speaks, she goes, "That's funny. That's funny," the whole time. And even she explained jokes to me, like she explained a Coumadin joke to me, the MRSA joke. Do you ever ask what the jokes mean? Any jokes?
There have been a lot of times where there have been policy jokes that I've had to like, and a lot of the ones that like the historical jokes. I think there was one like, was it this is the closet where Herbert Hoover got his mistress pregnant. I think that was one of them. I had no idea, but it turns out there was actually a closet in the White House that got turned into a storage area where Herbert Hoover got his mistress pregnant. Like there are a lot of sort of like the historic, because I just was never a very good student, and so I didn't learn a lot of American history, and so that's where I have to look around and be like, who is that person? Oh, that was a president? Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Next question.
Hi, I know you're really politically active on Twitter and things like that, so is being on the show where you get to make fun of these politicians that you're clearly frustrated with in real life like a form of catharsis for you, or like how do you reconcile like your frustrations with real world politics with your character of Jonah and everyone else on the show?
That's a good question. I think it does actually help, and I think it sort of puts me in a sort of fun and unique position to not to be sort of critical of both sides. Even my own party I try to be critical of. I have become much more cynical about politics in general because of being on this show. But all that being said, like nobody should ever listen to me when it comes to politics. Like nobody should ever listen to me. I'm just some dummy. So but that's a good question. Thank you.
I actually think like use your platform to voice your opinions. That's smart.
All right,
Go for it.
Try, but I just don't want it to get annoying. Let me know. Tweet me if it gets annoying. Cool.
And last question in the front, please.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm good.
Good.
Wait, was that the question?
Oh, yeah. That was a great answer.
Oh, thank you.
I was wondering, I love the show. It's like such an all-star cast, but what do you learn from working with the other actors?
It's sort of different person by person. I can't learn to be as talented as Julia, but she's incredibly professional and incredibly hardworking, so you try to at least hope that you can mimic that moving forward. And then there are just things like, I think we can all get stuck in our own ideas of sort of what makes something funny or how something is going to work, but I mean, when we all have ego, but like I have been proven wrong about what might make something funny or if something is working or not. That like if I don't think it's working, I've been proven wrong that it does a bunch of times. And so I think staying open to other people's ideas and at least giving them a do, even if you think I don't know if this is going to work. it's not going to work. It's not going to work at all if you don't try it. So I think that there is a fair amount of just like trying to learn from everybody's different styles and different communication, different ways that people communicate to try to get to the same end. And that sounds like I'm giving a TED talk about how to work like in Silicon Valley. Like that's like a really, and it's like about some dick jokes on a sweary show. But no, but I mean like there are a lot of different ways of making comedy, and you're not always right about them. So yeah. Also, thanks for coming to my TED talk.
And of course, you know, I do have one last question for you. You said that Tony Hale breaks the most, right?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
But how do they manage to edit that out? I mean, she is like, he's surgically attached to her. He's like hunched over. He's like her little butt boy, basically.
I think...
And she just rails at him all the time. And how do they edit that?
I think that he now has a way of, like he'll find business that turns him away from the camera so that when he is breaking, it looks like he's looking in the bag. Or like Nathan Fielder does a thing. I don't know if you guys watch Nathan For You, but that show's incredible. That show's amazing and you should watch it. But he does a thing where he starts picking his teeth. And that's if he's gonna break and he doesn't want it to ruin the take, he picks his teeth. And I think Tony has developed those kinds of things, yeah. But I think if you go back, like season 1, there are definitely scenes that made it in there where in the like soft focus in the background, you can see any number of us with our backs to the camera just kind of shaking, trying to keep it in.
Well, Veep airs Sunday nights on HBO.
Yes.
Thank
After
you.
Game of Thrones, so you're there
Oh,
already.
blah, forget Game
You're there
of
already.
Thrones. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.